It's time we have a talk. Marvel Rivals is dying. And frankly, after thousands of hours played, going solo to Celestial with so many characters, solo grinding to top 500 and even top 50 at one point, I've been losing passion for the game. But is the game truly dying? Or is it just sick? And is there a chance that it can bounce back? Today I want to talk about things that have been bothering me a lot on stream lately. A lot of things that are wrong with Marvel Rivals that still have not been fixed. And I just want to go over some of the issues that NetEase really has to step up and fix if we're going to move on from this lull in the game's lifespan. So first and foremost, before we get into the reasons, let me explain why I say that the game is dying. Because when I talk to a lot of people about this on stream or in chats or pretty much anywhere, a lot of people tell me, nah, the game's not really dying. I guess if you're a long time dedicated player, you might not notice it. But as a content creator and as somebody who has gone through this very thing with the finals and a lot of games after it, the writing is on the wall and we're at the start of the downward slope. The game is currently down 90% from its peak. Now, obviously, 644,000 players is a lot, and that is a big peak. There's a lot of players, don't get me wrong, but 100,000 from that in not even a year is pretty rough. That being said, the big thing I'm concerned about is not our difference from the peak, but how fast we lost it and how any new update to the game immediately loses its players. Season 3 held up pretty well. Season 3.5 kind of fell off a little bit here. It took about a month and we went from 150k players on the Season 3.5 release to 100k. Now with Season 4, we only got 132,000 player peak, and in just 2 weeks, not even a month, 2 weeks, we are under 100k players on the peak. There's a lot of good reasons for this. There's a lot of reasons that I think lead to this, and you guys are gonna have your own opinions in the comments, but I think it's very obvious that the game is going through some very rough times. Obviously, this only shows Steam, but it is where the majority of the players are, and most likely the player trends are going to look the same no matter where you are. Don't look at the numbers, but look at the player trends, and you can see that it's a clear downward slope. Twitch viewership as a whole is also trending downwards. Personally, I've noticed not only have my views on my own videos been going down, even as we improve the quality, even as we come out with new cool challenges, new shorts reach fewer people, and you can just tell that there's not as much interest in the game as there used to be. I've also noticed my views on the live streams, both on Twitch and on YouTube, going down as well, and my shorts, TikToks haven't really reached the same crowd. And again, while the numbers themselves are not that bad, the trend is that they are definitely going down. This is not what a thriving or growing game looks like. The fact that we are consistently losing players even as we repeat this frequent update cycle shows that something is fundamentally wrong with the game, and I think it's due to some of the issues that we've had with the gameplay and the balancing recently, stacking up with all the other issues with the matchmaking, lack of features, and so much more. We're just gonna dive into it, and we'll see where we end up. Now, for those guys who don't know what stacking is when an organized group queue up together in ranked, which usually leads to them steamrolling lobbies filled with randoms on the other side. You usually see this in pub games or in servers with that big of a population or in the very high elos. But in August, NetEase added a party cap at the high ranks, where if you are platinum and above, you can only be 3 players. And if you are Celestial Plus, you can only be a duo. This stopped people from 4 stacking or even 3 stacking in high elo. Now, obviously, this did mean that some people smurfed to dodge the cap, but honestly, it's quite a small subset of people. And I really want to give NetEase props for doing this because it does solve one issue, which was streamers or pros 4 stacking, but it's still not enough. And the reason for that is probably because there's so few players that are grinding the games out. So past GM, you can only be a 3 stack, and then in Celestial and above, you can be a duo. I think that's pretty fair, which basically means that when you're grinding for top 500, one above all, it takes some time to do. You're practically in a duo or a solo queue. But because of how few players that are actually playing this game and grinding it out, we are about, what, 1 week or 2 weeks away from season 4.5, and we still haven't even gotten 500 Celestial Plus players. As of today, you can be a GM player and still be in the top 500, which means that even though the intended effect was that, oh yeah, if you free stack, you can't like play the highest elo, people can still get on the leaderboard and play against high elo players and get to high elo up until the very end of a season. It doesn't effectively do much except maybe put a cap on for stacking, but I had to experience this earlier today where I played against Cringe Alarm, Raziel, some other third person on enemy team, and we were just a group of solos. We were 6 solo players, 2 games in a row. We just lost. There was nothing we could have done. So again, I really want to give NetEase props for this, but they did not do enough, and I would like NetEase to lock this down a little bit more. If the leaderboards start in GM, which they currently do and always have, maybe put the cap where you can only play as a duo starting from GM rather than from Celestial. Now, if we had more players, maybe this wouldn't be as much of a problem, but I still think that it's just a fair thing that if you want to get top 500, you want to be in the top 500 leaderboard, you're going to have to duo queue for it or solo queue for it and not just stack your way there. There's been a lot of talk about engagement optimized matchmaking. As you guys all know, the developers themselves have said there is no EOMM in Marvel Rivals. And for those who don't know, EOMM, engagement optimized matchmaking, is a theory that the game rigs wins or losses to keep you hooked and play the game for longer. This has been an active topic for a really long time now. Whether it's true or not, all these talks have led to a lower trust in the matchmaking and the game as a whole. You're gonna have some games that are super lopsided one way and then the other. I experience like a 50-50 very often, where one game we win really easily and every game we lose, and it's nothing I can do no matter what I do. And you kind of just get slingshotted, like either up and down in floating streaks or flip-flopped back and forward. A lot of people think this is EOMM, but if we listen to what the devs say, where there supposedly isn't any engagement optimized matchmaking in Marvel Rivals, it's still really bad. It's still not a good experience. A competitive game shouldn't feel like this. And regardless of what the actual system is, it's bad. It needs fixing, because when most of your fans are saying that EOMM exists, even if it isn't, then you're gonna have to take a look at why, and you gotta make actions to actually solve it. As for EOMM, I think that the best way to go about this is transparency, where you explain how the rank system works more in depth. Now, the developers did do this, I will give them credit for that, in making a video and explaining just how the matchmaking works, but I felt like it was a bit lackluster because they didn't really mention some parts. They omitted certain parts. For example, they didn't mention bot games. These actually do exist, by the way, and so much more. And I think even though they made an honest effort in being transparent, it fell flat because the video itself just felt like they were trying to, I guess, like just dispel the rumors without any real evidence. And if your game feels rigged, it is for the player. Perception is kind of truth. Now, one of the main reasons the matchmaking is considered to be so poor, there's actually 2 major reasons for this. I'm going to get to those as we go along the video. But one of the main ones is the lack of a role queue or role lock. And okay, you guys are going to come at me for this, but it's time we sit down and talk about this. I've talked about it on the second channel and on stream extensively. We have to add role queue. This game is not going to last unless we actually do. And we even saw an example of that in the video where the developers explained just how matchmaking works. It takes 12 players within a certain skill range. The first 12 players he gets and puts them together, just a lump of people, and then it balances them based on their ranks. And then they're done. That is it. It's basically, you're just randomly getting a team of 6 that's more or less the same rank as the other side's team of 6. Obviously, that means you're going to see some extremes where we're going to have maybe the lowest ranked player and the highest ranked player in the team, or something else. The point is, it's really awkward. But the main problem with the system is that it doesn't account for different roles. And it's something that they showed in their video explaining how matchmaking works, but it didn't actually provide any solution. They basically said, oh, just fill, bro. And I think when there's only one problem player, I felt like it was obvious enough in that video, but I want to paint a different hypothetical, something you probably seen in your own game, something I see in a lot of my own games. Let's say we have 2 teams of Grandmaster players, 12 players queued up at the same time. They're all GM free or something. One team has 2 tank mains, 2 support mains, and 2 DPS mains. So 2 of every role, which is usually considered the most compatible or best composition. You could argue triple support, we'll get to that. But the other team gets 5 DPS players and 1 support or 1 tank. What ends up happening is you have one team that has their true rank, because from a lot of people, they can either perform to their rank on their specific hero or at the very least their specific role. But if you take somebody, myself for example, you take me from DPS or you take me from tank and you put me on support, I'm gonna perform worse. I don't know what rank I am, but let's say I was a GM, I could argue my support might be like diamond. And for a lot of people, it's the same, if not worse. So what ends up happening is you have 2 teams that on paper have the same rank, but at the end of the day, 3 of these 5 DPS players have to flex to roles they are not as proficient at. It's gonna lead to the average rank of the team being lower than the one with all the mains. So before the game even has started, your team is already down on the average rank. You're all supposed to be GM, but if you count the roles they're flexing to, you might be averaging out somewhere in diamond. So already here we have a big problem because you have extremely lopsided matches one way or the other. Even though on paper this should be even, one team will probably steamroll the other. Sound familiar? And that's just assuming that people flex. A lot of people, especially in DPS, they pick the hero or the role they want to play and they stick to it because they know deep down, I really only know how to play this one hero or this one role. If I flex, we're gonna lose. I don't know how to play that hero as well. And the devs think all of us should just fill, but nobody is the exact same skill level on every single role. Not even me, who has solo queued to Celestial so many times on so many different roles, on so many different heroes. I'd like to think I could hold my own, but realistically, I can hyper carry on DPS or on tank. If I play support, at best, I get nothing done. At the mercy of my teammates just stepping up to the plate, which as a solo queuer is not okay. And when people get forced to roles that they can't play, this leads to toxicity because people are upset that others are underperforming. There's toxicity in jealousy that, oh, I wanted to play this role and you're underperforming, even though the person who's flexing might be playing worse. And it just leads to an overall negative environment. Now, the developers have said that they don't really consider role queue for now, and they seem to worry about potentially longer queue times, or, you know, this is not gonna be as much role appeal. If you want to play support or play DPS, the queues will be super long and it will be super easy to get a game on tank or something. But personally, I wouldn't mind longer queue times. All right, I'm already queuing for 5 to 10 minutes. Like, a number 5 to 10 doesn't matter too much, because currently what's happening is I sit in queue for 10 minutes and then my team has several people on the same role. People are gonna flex, and it's a loss, and it's an unfun game anyways. And now I didn't just waste my time in a 10-minute queue for a game that wasn't fun or fruitful, but I also had to waste time in that very game, which could take 10 minutes or 15 minutes. And when you add all of that together, you're looking at a 30 minutes of my time wasted on a game that shouldn't even have been created in the first place. Another issue with a role queue that the devs were pretty open about as the talks begun, you know, early in the game's lifespan, was that they don't want to limit the creativity of the players. They don't want people to feel like they are stuck in one composition or the other, which is fair. When you run a 2-2, the amount of comps you can run are not going to be as flexible. There's not going to be as much alternatives as with the current system. Now, the problem is that by not having 2-2, because you're going to have to force a 2-2 role lock in a role queue, is that you're going to get games where you have 3 tanks, you're going to have 3 supports, nobody likes that, be DPS, and 1 tank or support is going to struggle, and nobody really has a fun time. What they call creativity is something I would call a terrible game. And sometimes you see 3 DPS or 3 tanks or 3 supports just because the people that play these roles don't actually know how to play them optimally. And one of the reasons they don't know how to play them optimally could be that they got to this rank by playing a different role. They could have been a support player that randomly decided to do DPS, or maybe they think they're a DPS player but they're forced to support every game, and then they have this weird ego about it when they actually are just a support player that throws half of the game. I'm just putting a theoretical out there, but I digress. This game needs role queue really bad. In the current iteration, and probably any future iterations of Marvel Rivals, flex queue will just lead to worse quality matches, and people will feel like the matchmaking is bad because it is, because the game does not care what role you do play. It leads to people getting ranks they don't deserve. It leads to unenjoyable games. It just leads to a downward spiral of where we are today. Overwatch figured this out. They added role queue, and people are a lot happier. Forcing everyone to play 2-2 will be the answer. And I know, yes, some heroes will not be good in a 2-2. Buff those heroes. Overwatch did it when they introduced 5v5. Now, obviously, that didn't go very well because doing 5v5 wasn't really the play for the sake of Overwatch. I don't know why they did that whole thing, but they did rebalance it where the tanks, even Zarya, Winston, they were good enough to be main tanks on their own. You can do the same thing in Marvel Rivals where heroes like Adam gets a new ultimate or a stronger ultimate, stronger heals. I don't know. I'm not the game designer at the end of the day. If you add strength where other supports are more viable to play, then maybe 2 supports will be fine again. So in this perfect world, we want a 2-2-2 role queue. When you queue on one role, you are locked to the heroes within that role, and you're gonna have an individual rank on that very role. If I queue on tank, I'm gonna be GM. If I queue on support, I'm gonna be diamond, like I said earlier, and that's gonna be fine. It will lead to games where people get the rank that they actually deserve. You're gonna have people in GM with a GM support with a GM DPS, And if you lose because one of your support players sucks, that's gonna happen. But it's gonna happen a lot less because they had to climb all the way to GM as a support to throw your game. And it's really hard to do that when you can't flex between different heroes or have your teammates pick up another support to pick up the slack. And then additionally, next to all of this, you could have a flex queue. And the flex queue is basically the queue we have today. I think it depends on how big of a player base we have. If the queues are too long, maybe you don't keep this in. But it would be nice to have the option where you can have a separate queue where there's no lock on the heroes that you play. And you basically just have a rank based on, I guess, your mixed performance across all the ranks. And that's one way to do flex. Or you can have a different way where you just kind of queue up and you get either of the free, because you don't really care. And I know that NetEase really doesn't want this, but I stand by the fact that without role queue, this game might actually be doomed to fail. And it's in a really bad state right now. You do not want to see where it ends up when everyone grows tired of the way things are currently going. Moving on to the next point, I wanted to talk about placements, and this is also something I want to give a huge shout out to NetEase for doing. Apparently, they are adding placements. We don't know exactly how they're gonna work, and we'll see how they end up doing it. But we've been told that they're coming by Season 5, so maybe things will end up being better. For those who don't know what placements are, they are warm-up matches. They decide your starting rank instead of dumping everyone in bronze, forcing you to grind all the way up from the bottom to the top every single season. Because right now that we don't have placements at the start of the season, I believe bronze, silver, gold, maybe plat, they're all in the same lobbies at the start of the season until the plat players and gold players climb out of bronze. So it's just really chaotic and nobody really enjoys that. What I recently realized is that this also applies at the top, because if you're an Eternity player, you're gonna get reset into the same rank as everyone else above Eternity. So Eternity players get matched up with Eternity players, high Eternity players, and top 500 players. And there's quite a big skill gap between all of these tiers, but they're still lumped in together. So the rank system as a whole, what placements leads to these big lumps of people at the top and at the bottom that don't really are anywhere near the same skill level, and it just creates absolute chaos for the first few weeks. And then maybe somebody who didn't play for the first week comes in and it just all starts over and over again, and just leads to more experienced, lopsided, or unfun, or unbalanced, or uncompetitive matches. Additionally, when we are adding placements, I think they need to look into removing Chrono shields. These are a way to make it more forgiving to play ranked. I think the idea is to make people play ranked more often or not have as much anxiety about ranked. And all the way up to platinum, you can get a Chrono shield if you lose, I believe, like 3 games in a row, which offsets 1 loss. What this means is that over enough time elapsed, enough games played, you're gonna climb out of the ranks that you actually belong in just because of the Chrono shields mitigating losses that you probably should have had to keep you in the ranks you deserve. Now, because of the way the rank system is designed, the Chrono shields don't even do much. You don't really lose that much on a loss, and you actually gain more on a win up until a certain point. That's like Diamond plus 2 Grandmaster. I have performance-based gains because I obviously am not a bronze player, so I don't know exactly what the exact numbers are, but because of how bell curves work, you will gain more points on a win than you will lose on a loss. And it's going to be the opposite in the higher elo in Celestial Plus. So if we add placements and we remove Chrono shields, then I think that the ladder will just feel more balanced overall. I think adding role queue as a whole would make the biggest change, but I do think that the placements on their own will make a big difference as well. Additionally, adding placements will let me do Soul to Celestial again. Hopefully. Now, obviously, the problem with placements is that there can be people that smurf, use them nefariously, they intentionally lose the placements, and then sell the accounts, or they smurf in bronze or something like that. But if you throw games, that's a bannable offense. It's very easy for them to crack down on. So I'm not too worried about this, and it's still significantly more work to get to bronze than just making a new account. Making a new account and then playing for the placements, whether you throw or not, is still a lot of time you have to spend just to stomp on bronze players, and that is enough of a deterrent to stop most of the players from doing. And as for my Soul to Celestial, I'm pretty sure that we were just gonna be Soul to Celestial replacements, and then we grind up the last few ranks. Because most likely what they're gonna do is what a lot of other games do. You have to play 10 games, and the game will kind of test your skill level and then place you accordingly. Now we know how the ranks work. We have bronze all the way through one above all. Obviously, placements wouldn't put you in one above all. It wouldn't put you in bronze. It would put you somewhere in the middle. Let's say somewhere between gold and Grandmaster. Then you'd have to climb the next few ranks to get to the rank that you actually belong. But yes, sure, that would still leave a lump of players around gold and around Celestial, but it would not be as bad as the way it currently works, and the middle point would feel a lot better across the entire season, across resets. It would need basically a whole season to populate properly, but after that, people would fall in place where they actually do belong. Also, as I mentioned before, speaking of which, I'm pretty sure the rank system has to go away from performance-based gains. This isn't something I prepared, I just realized it when we talk about this other point. Performance-based gains in a ranked system like Marvel Rivals does not work. You're incentivizing the wrong things and you're causing people to play with the wrong things in mind. I've caught myself thinking, oh, if I make this play, I'll make more rank points. I'm not gonna join this team fight because I'll get more rank points, or lose more if we lose the fight or lose the game. My KDs will suffer if we lose this. It adds another level where you no longer care about the individual outcome of each game, and rather what your outcome will be across 10 games, where if I play optimally for my points gain, playing a DPS role, getting final hits or whatever, then I'll be able to climb even though I have a 50% win rate, or maybe even lower. With performance-based gains, people have found ways to abuse it to play certain heroes that get way more points than others, and they actually climb even though they might be the reason that the team is losing the game. The problem with performance-based gains is I believe that they made them stronger in season 2 or so, and we felt the results almost immediately. People either intentionally play in ways that the system rewards with more points to try to stat pad as much as they can, get the nice stats, because they also explained this in the video, which explained how matchmaking works, where you have a performance coefficient where your performance per, let's say 10 minutes or over a certain time, is compared with other people in your rank on the same hero. If I play Moon Knight, the average person gets 20k damage, I have to get 20k damage, or I am gonna lose points. At the same time, your coefficient is compared with your teammates, so if you're the only person on your team actually making good progress, then you are the only person making serious points. And in theory, it makes sense. If somebody carries, they should be rewarded, right? If somebody does poorly, they should be punished, or they shouldn't, you know, get to coast off of the win. The problem is there's a million things that are not quantifiable, and sometimes you'll find, for example, when I play tank and I shield off the healers, or just pressure somebody to take space so the enemy team can't dive them, I stopped enemy divers from jumping my backline, but I don't get any kills, I don't do any damage, I don't get any damage blocked. I'm just standing there menacingly, stopping my supports from dying, and we will end up winning the fight, but my stats are atrocious. Like, I can have full games. This happened a lot when we're doing the Emma to Celestial, when we started her, where I would go in, I'd shield off the enemy supports with a shield, and then my teammates, or even myself, would kill the people that were now caught off guard with no heals and a shield behind them. The problem is I didn't get credit for this, and even though I had a 70-80% win rate, like an insanely high win, one of my highest ones yet, especially because these were top 500, like high top 500 lobbies, I wasn't getting rewarded for this. I was getting like plus 15 to plus 20 points and losing 25 to 30 because my stats weren't as good. Obviously, I was doing something right with that high of a win rate, but the gains were not there. So what you have now is people either intentionally playing in ways that benefit the system, or unintentionally just playing the game the wrong way and still climbing anyways. And then you have people getting into ranks they don't belong in. They're not actually that good, but the system has just pushed them up to that point because they put all this volume down, optimize, and playing in the exact way that the system wants them to, even though they actually don't know what they're doing. They're playing selfishly for themselves. They're getting kills, not because they think they'll get more points, just because they're really selfish, not team players, and don't know what the hell they're doing. They don't care about ultimates, they don't care about positioning. As long as they get their kills, that's all they care about. And I've never seen a game where performance-based gains will work, and I just think that Marvel Rivals is definitely not one of those. Even if you can find a way where your performance-based gains accurately measured your impact, again, space is, I don't think there's a single way you can actually measure out space, which is the main thing a tank does. You're still gonna find yourself in situations where you will be competing with your own teammates for the rank gains. We've had some games that have been super lopsided that we absolutely stomped. I had that earlier today, where we absolutely stomped the enemy team, and I was playing Emma. I was just standing on the point, just swelling my thumbs. Somebody has to be the cart bitch. Somebody has to move the point forward, and I could absolutely pick a DPS hero and farm kills with the rest of my team, but I wanted to win. So I stayed on point, I played objective, and I was rewarded with a fat plus, I think, 19, when the others got like 20, 25, because they were out there farming kills. My coefficient was too low. So overall, the performance-based system does more harm than good. It's only there to make people feel good about, oh, I did so much, but we still lost. But here's a wake-up call for you. If you get a lot of kills and you still lose, then you didn't actually do so much. You actually didn't do enough. If I kill the enemy Spider-Man because he jumps into my team and dies 20 times in a row and I get 20 kills, but I still can't kill the supports, but I still can't do a meaningful ultimate, then I'm no better than my other DPS teammate who only got 5 kills. If anything, they might even be better. Anything that doesn't lead to a win is technically a bad play. So as many people know, Marvel Rivals, just like Borderlands 4 runs on Unreal Engine 5. Most games that run on Unreal 5 have a ton of performance issue, and Marvel Rivals is no exception. That being said, it's not 100% the fault of the engine, because certain games like the Finals or Arc Raiders are also on UE5, and they run so good, buttery smooth. It really just comes down to how important optimization and having a game that runs well is to the game studios, in this case Embark, who does a splendid job with both of those games. So the issue I was having in Marvel Rivals, and I realized it more when I came back, is that my game was very inconsistent. I had about 120 frames to 160 frames on average with DLSS on. This means I had a lower resolution than I'm on 4040p, and it was scaled up, which meant it was very blurry, but it still only ran at, again, such a low and inconsistent frame rate. And hold on now, Randy, I know what you're gonna say, get a better PC. I have a monster NASA PC with a 7800 X3D. The only reason I didn't get a higher one is because that was the most best bang for your buck, really, when it came out. I have a 4090 and I think 64 gigabytes of RAM, DDR4 CL30. I believe the whole computer MSRP to like $6,000 to $10,000. So when I expect my games to run well, I think that's pretty fair to say. I think it's fair to expect my games to run well when I put that much money down. And getting 120 to 160 frames with DLSS is unacceptable. This is what it should run at natively. So my chat put me on something called a config, a booster pack, if you may. This is something that makes my game looks like absolute garbage, but it actually lets me crank out about 240 to 300 frames consistently, assuming there's no strange portal or a phoenix in the game for some reason. Too many particle effects. And what I noticed is not only that the game runs better, but I play better. I feel revitalized, like I can actually start hitting things. I became more aware of how inconsistent my play was because of lag. When a lot of things happen at once, I thought to myself, oh, I can't really keep up. It turns out that my frames just dropped to like 60, but because of DLSS, I couldn't really feel it. I could just feel that my input lag and my, like how slow my mouse felt was really weird. And I thought, again, I just wasn't keeping up. Turns out once we changed these, we downloaded the configs and we did a little bit of tweaking. Shout out to Lugo and the rest of the chatters. We actually got it to run quite well. Again, it looks like absolute trash, but at least it works. And I think that's what matters the most. Ideally, I would just like the game to be more well optimized, but I mean, I guess I'm asking too much. Moving on to something else that might be a bit controversial, but something I don't like is the current shift in the meta. During the launch in the first few seasons of the game, it was pretty much a ranged burst hero meta. You had Hela, Hawkeye, I guess some Punisher, even though he's more consistent damage. But after the game has continued progressing, people are learning to play the game better. A lot of things have changed. Melee and brawl heroes such as Magic are kind of easier and stronger, and it feels like a melee heavy game. One of the main reasons these heroes are very strong is because they're self-sufficient. You can look at win rates for that. Obviously, win rates aren't the end all be all, like, oh yeah, if something has a high win rate, that's an overpowered hero. But a hero with a high win rate and a decent pick rate usually means that the hero has a very good self-sustainability, and most of the heroes that I enjoy playing do need your team to play around you a little bit, and if you play on your own, you're probably gonna end up dying pretty much all the time, which reflects in the win rates, as you know, these heroes are sub 50% win rate most of the time, and heroes like Magic Penny, Mantis, Captain America are all in the top 5 with a 60 to 54% respectively. As somebody who likes grinding my aim and just shooting at things, it just doesn't feel good. Maybe this is just me personally, I'm just complaining for the sake of my own enjoyment, but as somebody who wanted to play a third-person shooter, playing against heroes that don't really require aim the same way feels kind of cheap. It's easy to get reliable value with simpler plays just by button mashing on either of these heroes. Obviously there's combos to it, but when you compare the amount of effort needed to secure a kill on a Magic as a Hela versus the other way around, you can see why it feels pretty frustrating. We're looking at thousands and thousands of hours in shooters or aim trainers to have good enough accuracy to even be anywhere near the sheer amount of damage that a Magic can output to kill a Hela, which is like a you just watch a TikTok tutorial and then you got it. And overall, we're seeing a bit of a power creep going on in the game right now, where we got basically Hela 2.0 with Phoenix. Now, obviously, the big difference between Hela and Phoenix is that Phoenix has better survivability, movement, I think overall damage, and something else we'll mention later. And she also has a what many consider better ultimate, but she is more of a close range brawler and Hela is a long range brawler. So they're not exactly the same, but a lot of people do consider Phoenix Hela 2.0, and I think it's pretty fair to say that is true. And that makes a lot of people feel like, why should we play Hela if we have Phoenix? And now with Angela being added, who is basically in a way, it's a flying tank, but in a way you could argue argue it's like Wolverine 2.0. We're seeing new, better versions of the same heroes being added, which makes it feel like the old heroes aren't worth playing anymore. Additionally, something that a lot of people do have an issue with is of course, when it comes to balance, is triple support comps or just triple comps in general. That just autofills my brain now. If it's a triple support composition, I will not enjoy the game. In higher ranks, it's absolutely awful to play right now because you have to play triple support or you're gonna lose the game. People don't want to play triple support for partly probably because of the reasons I mentioned previously, or just because they don't like it. Like triple support versus triple support isn't fun because nothing ever dies, but it is the meta way to play. When you have one team that has triple support and everyone doesn't, the team with triple support will win like most of the time. And a lot of games are determined before the game even starts because one team might decide to run triple support and another team might have one if you're lucky. So now you're just gonna have one team won because they have the support and the other team just didn't pick triple support because they don't want to play. I can't blame people for not wanting to play triple support. It sucks. It's not fun. It's really just like exhausting to play, but it does suck that you will lose games just because your team doesn't wanna. Like I can pick support. I'm not very good at it. I'll do it every once in a while, but what ends up happening is, you know, the guy who actually isn't a good DPS is just underperforming on DPS still, and now I have free support and now less people are dying. It's just not fun to be in this situation where no matter what you do, you're just gonna lose because of the way the comps work and the matchmaking works and so much more. It all just compounds together. It comes down to roll queue. So if you guys don't know what animation cancel is, it's a trick to skip an abilities ending lag, which lets you attack faster. It lets you do several abilities in a row, which lets you output more damage or, you know, whatever, right? You can use your whole kit faster. Since the game came out, there's been animation cancels that many haven't had a problem with that kind of raised the skill ceiling of the game. I guess this goes in hand with power creep a little bit. You had things like Doctor Strange. He can like animation cancel his reload, right? You can reload cancel with certain abilities. For example, Chrono can do a primary and cancel that with a secondary. So you can do both pretty fast. And there were a certain amount of these for every hero that you could just combine to do some pretty high skill combos, but they weren't must-haves or must-knows. However, with the last few heroes, we're noticing that animation cancels are not only really strong, but they're must-haves. So for Phoenix, you have the Beyblade technique. If you guys don't know what the Beyblade technique is, it's basically a technique which lets you output about 2 times or 3 times as high of a damage per second, assuming your target is within range. It's pretty much just if you shoot and then melee to cancel the shot, then you hit your flight form. You have to also change a setting for this to work, by the way. And you just rotate that. You can do that basically ad infinitum until you run out of stamina. This lets you build an ultimate in the middle of a support ultimate in no time. This lets you absolutely nuke people through support ultimates. I've done it myself, and it's just really easy and cheesy to do, but you wouldn't know about this unless you've seen a TikTok or somebody told you about it. It's so strong that if you don't do this animation cancel when somebody is within range, people consider you throwing. The problem I have with this is that it almost feels like an exploit to me. It's so damn strong that despite just being an animation cancel using the things in the game that are laid there bare for anyone to use, there is literally no counterplay to it. If she gets within range, you will probably die. I played a lot of DPSs, and no matter what I do, if she does the full combo with a half decent accuracy, she's gonna nuke you. There's nothing you can do. So playing against it feels very annoying, but then you have heroes like Angela that just came out that has an animation cancel combo, and if you don't do this animation cancel combo, you have so little damage, you could just fart at them and you would probably make more of an impact. And I think the problem with the animation cancel is that it makes the devs paint themselves into a corner, because on one hand you have all these stats, all the data showing, oh, this hero has this much damage or that much damage, but then it's like, okay, well, did it do this much damage and have this much impact using the animation cancel or not? In the case of Phoenix, again, that's 2 or 3 times the effective damage output when the enemy is within range. How would you as a developer balance a hero like that? Because when you touch the rest of her kit, it's going to impact the animation cancel. First, I would say that I like the idea of animation cancels. I think the way the word was fine, but you have to be more careful about adding heroes that have animation cancels that are this strong, or have animation cancels that are a must-have for the hero to even work properly in the first place. For the sake of Phoenix, I think the solution is pretty obvious. Don't let us do the Beyblade tech. Maybe slow down how fast you can do the spin to win, and maybe keep the melee cancel that still levels up your damage a ton, but it doesn't make it nearly as bad as a full Beyblade rotation. I don't know, but you need to add some type of frame lag here and stop people from being able to spam it, or it will just be really frustrating to play against, especially as more people learn about the Beyblade tech, because I'm sure a lot of people watching at home had no idea this existed. So you're welcome for the free elo. Subscribe, I guess. Next up, if you don't like ranked or you just haven't unlocked it yet, there's obviously the quick play experience, which feels absolutely terrible. I've played a decent amount of quick play. We've done solo to Celestia so many times. Obviously gonna have to level accounts up. When I started playing, I obviously play a lot of quick play, and every once in a while I might try it. We did it with the dojo every once in a while. And quick play is supposed to be this casual experience, but I don't think anyone considers it casual at all. Honestly, I don't even know if people enjoy it. I feel like a lot of people just play quick play as a means to unlock ranked. I actually don't even know if there are real quick match players anymore, and that's for a lot of reasons. First off, there's the matchmaking. The balancing is really weird. Lobbies can have new players mixed in with veterans or higher level players. There's obviously no bans. There's a ton of smurfs because, again, people just play these quick play matches to level up the smurfs so they can hop into ranked. This leads to toxicity from the smurfs or even from the teammates because there's just somebody who's god moding one team and not the other. And this makes quick play just feel pointless for either practice or fun because it's just a toxic cesspool with unbalanced matches and you just cannot really have fun or chill. Most serious players just straight up avoid it, and then casuals or the noobs, they just get stomped and don't have a good time. Additionally, if you lose enough games or maybe even randomly, the game just gives you bot games. People still don't notice. There are actually bots, and this is what I mentioned with the EOMM video. There are bots in Marvel Rivals, which is part of EOMM technically. If you lose so many games to Marvel Rivals, the game puts you in a lobby with AI. I believe you get like 3 players, yourself included, and then a few bots on your team, and then the entire enemy team are bots themselves. They have realistic looking names, so you don't actually know that they are bots, but they are very much bots. You can't check their profile. But if you check out the VOD later, you can see that they're just gonna stand still and spawn and then move out very robotically. The problem with these quick play matches is that you're not allowed to leave them. As with any other quick play match, if you leave too much, they will give you a penalty. These bot matches are no different. If you get put into one of these games, you're gonna have to sit there and just play through it the whole time. It's not fun. I would imagine if I'm a gamer dad who has a half an hour after tucking the kids to sleep on a Saturday night, I don't want to spend 10 to 20 of those minutes in a quick match with bots that I'm not allowed to leave. I don't think anyone asked for this. I'm sure it worked at the start before people realized that there are AI in the quick matches. But by now I feel like they just have to go, man. Just keep the AIs in play versus AI and leave it there. Another solution for quick play could be adding some type of light SPMM or just, I don't know if there maybe is SPMM. I don't feel like it is. It seems completely arbitrary or random, but this does need another pass to just make it more enjoyable for the casual players because you really shouldn't have the whole game revolve around ranked or being a pipeline to ranked and then have it being such a negative experience once you finally get there. And speaking of which, finally, of course, I want to talk about toxicity and enforcement. Currently, the community mood is really bad. There's a lot of flaming, there's AFKing, there's griefing, there's hate speech being reported with basically no consequence. I've had people flame the hell out of me, call people all kinds of slurs. I had somebody pull a Delor on me, like when we did one of his Soul to Celestials, he just said the N-word 50 times in a row. Like, what do I even do? And you know, you report these and they get like a 10-minute slap on the wrist. If they weren't even online by the time the ban hits, by the time they come back, the ban has already run out. They might not even be alerted that it happened. People just feel like they can be as toxic as they want with no consequence, and they end up being that toxic. So reports feel ignored. There's no proper feedback when someone is punished. People tell me, oh, this person that you reported is muted or punished or whatever, but I see them in the next game doing the exact same thing. It clearly doesn't seem like it does literally anything. Like, I know there are lever and AFK penalties and they are pretty strict, but chat toxicity goes unpunished. I personally think this is probably just me, and you guys can disagree at home all you want. If somebody gets a mute on their account, they should not be allowed to play ranked. I think this is like probably a pretty easy solution when it comes to consequences. I feel like a lot of reports seem like they just fall on deaf ears. I feel like they've stepped up and been better with this, but it definitely feels like a lot of things go unpunished. But assuming they go punished or get punished, they can still play the game. They just can't say anything. I can have somebody flame me or flame somebody else. I report them, I see they get muted, we queue up in the next game, and they just throw the next game and just are super toxic. We just don't say anything because they're muted, but it gets like queue up. I believe Deadlock does this, and maybe Dota does it. I'm not entirely sure, but I don't think the game should allow you to queue up into ranked at the very least if you're muted. This is not just as a means of punishing toxic player, even though that's one of the main reasons, but also how are you supposed to communicate with your team if you're muted? How are you supposed to make callouts or hear callouts or communicate with your team if you can't even talk? It doesn't make sense. So I think that all mutes or punishments like it moving forward need to be accompanied with a temporary ranked ban as well. Something that is interesting though is that when it comes to most games or competitive games, the player's sentiment or the community mood is directly tied to how the game is doing. And as we established early on in this video, and I don't know how long we were going to edit this down to, we've been yapping for over an hour. Thank you guys for watching if you're still listening to me yap about this. But when a game is doing very poorly, the community starts getting toxic and eating itself, and there's a lot of infighting and unnecessary toxicity because there's nothing else to do. The game doesn't give the same, I guess, dopamine hit, or it doesn't really scratch the same itch anymore, so they start attacking each other just to feel something. So in addition to viewership going down, in addition to player counts going down, the increase of toxicity has a direct correlation with how the game is currently doing. And as we keep losing more players and the queues are getting worse and the perceived matchmaking is getting worse, people are getting very toxic. It's getting pretty bad over in pretty much every rank, but especially like in the high, right on the top 500 rank. Oh man. But in conclusion, Marvel Rivals is in a bad spot. There are so many things to improve, but it really just feels like the devs are ignoring a lot of it. And if they don't step up to the plate and fix this, I'm worried that there's not going to be a Marvel Rivals in the next 6 months or year. Most people that are tired of the toxicity or want role queue or better matchmaking and competitive hero shooter, they're gone to Deadlock, Overwatch, the competitors, and it will continue going there because Marvel Rivals is not scratching that itch. Personally, I'm not sure what game I'm going to be playing. I've been having a really hard time playing Rivals on stream lately. After I came back from Madrid, it was just so overwhelmingly negative for me. It was so obvious that something was wrong, and I've been thinking about this ever since I came back, and hopefully this video covers it. It probably doesn't even cover all my thoughts, but pretty much most of them that I had been planning to talk about I've been covered. And you guys know me, I'm an authentic guy. I can't keep the stream on and pretend everything's fine when I'm just getting stuff thrown in my face all the time. I have to deal with toxicity, the bad quality games, and everything just, you know, compounding and getting worse and worse. So personally, I am looking forward to playing Battlefield when it comes out October 10th. I know that's when 4.5 comes out with Daredevil, I believe, but I'm gonna be playing Battlefield. I don't care. And then there's Battlefield BR coming out shortly after. Arc Raiders. October is gonna be a very fun season. It's gonna be a fun month. But you know, there's still 2 weeks until then. If you guys want me to keep playing Rivals, let me know in the comments. I've just been grinding Kovacs so I can be as fresh as possible. But if you guys want me to play something else, you know, let me know in the comments. See what we can try some more games out and see what works. We tried Fortnite BR, wasn't that good. Tried the finals, definitely not in a good place right now. At least personally, I don't really enjoy it as much as I used to. I'm hoping to try some fun stuff out for the next 2 weeks. If not, we'll just keep grinding for top 500 and be miserable the whole time. But yeah, thank you so much guys for listening to me yap about this. I hope you guys are having a great rest of your evening, and yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.